It was the kind of late spring night that wrapped suburban Chicago in a false sense of calm. The streets of Wilmette were quiet, the air tinged with the chill that lingers just past midnight. Memorial Day had come and gone. Most families were asleep by 3 a.m., their celebrations already forgotten. But Grant Nelson, a 34-year-old Uber driver, was still out. He wasn't the type to complain. Grant enjoyed the night shift, especially on holidays when surge pricing meant a little extra cash. He was soft-spoken, courteous, and known to keep a smile even during the oddest of rides. He wasn't just a driver. He was the kind of man who would pull over to help a stray cat or offer water bottles to passengers on hot nights. To those who knew him, he was gentle, steady, the kind of person who disappears into the noise of life, but leaves behind a silence when gone. That night, Grant had dinner with his sister before heading out. She remembered how he had been relaxed, laughing about something silly on TV. There was no premonition, no warning, just an ordinary evening. At 3:15 a.m., his Uber app pinged. A request had come in from a Walmart in Skokie, just a few miles away. The rider's name was Eliza. Grant accepted without hesitation. A quick pickup, maybe a short ride. He turned up the quiet classical music he liked to play while driving and began to make his way through the sleeping neighborhoods. He had no way of knowing that the person waiting for him wasn't just a passenger. She was a storm, building quietly in the dark. It was 3 a.m. when Eliza Wasni walked into the Walmart on Toe-High Avenue in Skokie, Illinois. The store was quiet, almost deserted. Security guards yawned in boredom, employees restocked shelves with routine fatigue, and cameras blinked quietly from the corners. Nobody noticed the teenage girl slip past the greeters. She was just 16 years old, her face still soft with youth, dressed in a hoodie and leggings, unremarkable in every way. But there was something about her eyes that the cameras couldn't catch, a certain blankness, a silence beneath the surface. Eliza moved with eerie calm through the aisles. She wasn't browsing. She wasn't texting or calling anyone. She walked straight to the sporting goods section, scanned the shelves with cold intent, and picked up a long machete. Then she turned and grabbed a serrated knife, a hunting blade with a heavy handle and a gleaming edge. Without hesitation, she slipped them into the front pocket of her hoodie and continued walking. No alarms, no reaction, no one stopped her. The store's overnight staff later admitted they didn't even see her. The only witnesses were the silent eyes of the security cameras that watched as she walked through the self-checkout lanes without purchasing a single thing. She exited through the automatic doors, her hands buried in her pockets. And the world outside never even blinked. What was she thinking? Why a machete? Why a knife? Prosecutors would later reveal that she didn't know her victim, didn't have a plan beyond the weapons and the next few minutes. It was random, violent, unfathomable. Outside, she opened the Uber app on her phone. She used a fake name and input her destination, somewhere not far, just a few blocks. She needed to keep it short, just long enough to do what she came to do. A notification lit up her screen. Her driver was arriving soon. His name, Grant Nelson. His photo showed a clean-shaven, kind-eyed man in his 30s. She slid the phone back into her pocket. Then, she waited in the shadows, machete and knife still hidden on her. The quiet of that Walmart parking lot held its breath. Grant turned onto the street, and Eliza stepped forward, ready to get in. At 3:18 a.m., Grant Nelson's silver Hyundai Sonata rolled quietly into the parking lot of the Walmart on Touhy Avenue. The streets were still, the only sound the soft hum of the car's engine and the occasional buzz of a streetlight overhead. Inside, Grant glanced at his phone. The writer's name? Eliza. A young girl, apparently. Nothing unusual. He'd picked up hundreds of passengers, some polite, some quiet, some drunk, some chatty. It was all part of the job. He parked near the entrance and waited. A teenage girl emerged from the shadows, walking with her hands in the front pocket of her hoodie. Grant didn't notice anything odd. She looked like someone's daughter coming home from a late study session or a sleepover. "Are you Eliza?" he asked kindly. She nodded. "Hop in," he said. She slid into the back seat, closed the door softly behind her. No words, no music, just silence and the sound of tires rolling over pavement as Grant tapped "Start Trip" on his app and pulled away. The ride was short, just a few minutes through a dark stretch of Lincolnwood. He likely didn't suspect anything at first, but then something shifted. Maybe he heard her rustling in the back seat. Maybe he saw movement in the rearview mirror. Then steel flashed in the dark. Without a word, Eliza lunged forward. She struck him once, twice, then again and again. A machete, a hunting knife. She hacked at his arms, his chest, his neck, silent and unrelenting. The car veered, Grant struggling to maintain control, blood pouring from his wounds. He managed to pull to the curb near an apartment complex on Toohey in Lincoln, gasping for air, gurgling through his own blood. But he didn't stop. He knew he was dying, but he wasn't done fighting. With superhuman effort, Grant pushed open his door and stumbled into the night. He ran. Inside the car, Eliza sat momentarily, her face expressionless. She watched him go, then moved into the front seat. Grant, meanwhile, was staggering toward the only light he could find, the glass lobby of a nearby condominium. Surveillance footage captured the horrifying scene. A man drenched in blood, slamming his fists on the door, collapsing inside, barely able to speak. "My passenger. She stabbed me," he gasped to the night security guard. An ambulance was called, but by the time they arrived, Grant had lost too much blood. He was barely clinging to life. He was rushed to St. Francis Hospital in Evanston. At 4:02 a.m., Grant Nelson was pronounced dead. The security guard on duty that night at the condominium complex had never seen anything like it. The building was always quiet at that hour. Retirees, young couples, professionals. Nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. Until a man burst through the front glass doors, drenched in blood, his eyes wide with terror. It was Grant Nelson. He was stumbling, barely upright. He clutched his chest with one hand, blood gushing from open wounds in his neck and torso. His other hand reached out blindly, slapping against the walls as he tried to steady himself. The guard froze for a moment before rushing to his aid. "Help me," he gasped, his voice raw and fading. "My passenger. She stabbed me." The words sent chills through the guard. He grabbed the phone and called 911, his voice trembling as he described the scene. Dispatch sent paramedics and police immediately. Grant collapsed near the security desk. His breathing was shallow. Each gasp seemed to be a fight between his body and death itself. He tried to speak again, but only a faint wheeze came out. Blood pooled beneath him on the polished tile. The surveillance footage of this moment would later become a key piece of evidence. It showed not just the horror of what had happened, but the unbelievable will Grant had summoned to stay alive, to seek help, to warn others. Outside, Eliza Wasni was still in the car, but she wasn't fleeing yet. She sat in the driver's seat of Grant's Hyundai Sonata, hands on the wheel, blood still dripping from the blades she'd used. The machete lay beside her, the knife slick with crimson. She wasn't shaking, she wasn't crying. She was eerily calm. Moments later, she finally moved, starting the engine and speeding away down Lincoln Avenue. She didn't get far. At Lincoln and East Prairie, she lost control. The car slammed into a median, the front end crumpling. She stepped out. Her hands were bloodied, her hoodie stained deep with the red of someone else's life. The machete and the hunting knife, still with her.
Police were already canvassing the area. Using the Uber logs and Grant's final words, they had a name. They traced the ride. The make and model of the car, the last known location. Within minutes, Lincolnwood officers arrived at the crash site and began searching nearby alleys and buildings. Then they spotted her, hiding behind a small office building, crouched low, trying to disappear into the night. She still had the machete and the knife. Officers ordered her to drop the weapons. She refused. One officer deployed a taser. Seconds later, Eliza Wasni was in custody, silent, uninjured, and utterly without remorse. The arrest of Eliza Wasni happened without a scream, without a struggle, and yet it was among the most chilling moments in the case, not because of violence, but because of her eerie calm. Police found her just a few blocks from the scene of the crash, crouched behind a building near an office park. Her bare feet were cut and dirty. Blood streaked across her hands, her hoodie soaked deep with the red of someone else's life. The machete and the knife still with her. What haunted the responding officers later wasn't the scene or even the brutality they'd heard on the radio. It was her eyes, blank, cold, empty, as if what just happened wasn't murder, but a scene from a video game. "Drop the weapons," one officer shouted. She didn't comply. She didn't flinch. Another officer raised his taser and fired. Eliza collapsed to the pavement, twitching as the electric current jolted through her. The machete clattered beside her on the sidewalk. The knife rolled a few feet away. When officers cuffed her, she didn't resist. She didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. As they loaded her into the squad car, she still hadn't said a word. Back at the crash site, investigators worked quickly. The vehicle, a silver Hyundai Sonata, was registered to Grant Nelson. Inside the car, they found evidence of a violent struggle. Blood on the dashboard, the seat, the rear passenger area. His phone was still unlocked on the Uber app, showing the ride in progress, with the name Eliza. In under an hour, everything clicked into place. She had ordered an Uber using a fake name, boarded Grant's vehicle with stolen weapons, attacked him from behind, and tried to flee. But she hadn't made it far, and now she was in custody. At the station, detectives tried to speak with her. She refused. No statement, no emotion. Police searched her phone and found no texts, no social media rants, no suicide notes, no manifesto, nothing that explained what just happened. This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a robbery. There was no known connection between her and Grant Nelson. It was, as prosecutors would later describe it, pure evil in its most senseless form. News of the killing spread fast. Uber issued a statement expressing deep sorrow, calling it an unimaginable tragedy. Passengers across Chicago questioned their own safety. Drivers were rattled, reminded that a stranger could carry violence in their pocket as easily as a fare. But the deepest grief lived in Wilmette, in the Nelson home, where Grant's family learned from police that their son, their brother, their friend, was gone.
And for no reason. No robbery. No motive. Only a ride. And a knife. As Eliza Wasni appeared in court for the first time, the courtroom was hushed, expectant, grim. The girl who had slaughtered an Uber driver in cold blood entered in juvenile detention garb, shackled at the wrists and ankles. Her eyes, again, blank. No tears, no fear, no apology. The judge looked down at her. "You are charged with first-degree murder," he said. "You are being tried as an adult." Her attorney said she had mental health issues, that she was too young to understand what she had done. But the facts, the savagery of the attack, the premeditation of stealing the weapons, the use of a fake name, the silent getaway, spoke louder than any plea. Grant Nelson's family sat in the gallery, his sister Alex barely able to hold back tears as prosecutors recounted the final ride. The 911 calls were played in court, security footage shown, and the words Grant gasped in the last moments of his life echoed through the room. "My passenger, she stabbed me." It was the kind of case that left judges shaken. Eliza had no criminal record, no known violent past. She was a violinist, a student, a child. But that night, she became something else, something terrifying. Prosecutors revealed that Eliza had shoplifted the weapons minutes before the murder. She had selected the machete and knife purposefully, then ordered the Uber with the intent to use them. She struck from behind, delivering over a dozen wounds to Grant Nelson's neck, chest, and head. The coroner described his death as prolonged and brutal. The defense offered no counter, no self-defense claim, no mental breakdown theory, just silence and sadness. After nearly 3 years of hearings, delays, and evaluations, in August 2020, Eliza Wasni entered a guilty plea. She did not speak when the judge asked if she had anything to say to the family of the man she killed. The judge sentenced her to 27 years in prison, the maximum allowed under the circumstances. He said the crime was incomprehensible and that she had shown not 1 ounce of remorse. Outside the courtroom, Alex Nelson stood before reporters. "My brother was just doing his job. He was trying to get home safe like everyone else. He didn't deserve to die like that." Her voice cracked. No family should have to sit in a courtroom and hear how their loved one screamed for help while being hacked to death. The courtroom emptied. Eliza Wasni was led away, still without expression. She will be eligible for parole when she is in her early 40s. Grant Nelson will never turn 35. The days following Grant Nelson's murder were marked by silence, a kind that wrapped itself around an entire community like a suffocating fog. In Wilmette, Illinois, a place known for calm streets and quiet homes, the news shattered the illusion of safety. This wasn't just a crime, it was a tragedy that had no reason, no warning, no explanation. At the Nelson home, grief hung heavy. Grant's sister Alex had to identify his body. She said later that she barely recognized him, not because of the physical wounds, but because it seemed impossible. Her brother was the kind of man who never raised his voice, never took risks, never left without saying, "I'll see you soon." He was her only sibling, her best friend, and now he was gone. A memorial was held a few days later. Uber drivers from across Chicago showed up, hazard lights blinking in quiet solidarity. They led a silent procession through the city, past the spot where Grant was attacked, through Lincolnwood, and toward the lakefront where he used to walk alone at night, listening to classical music. Friends remembered him not just as an Uber driver, but as a lover of poetry, animals, and peace. He'd once rescued a litter of kittens stranded in an alley and carried them one by one to a shelter. He always kept a book of Rachmaninoff's concertos in his glove box. At the memorial, someone played a recording of one of those pieces. It echoed across the field like a final breath. In the months that followed, Alex Nelson became a quiet advocate for driver safety and mental health awareness. She didn't want another family to go through what hers did. She worked with legislators, spoke at schools, and created a foundation in Grant's name, offering support to rideshare drivers in crisis. He was kind to everyone, even to the person who took his life. He offered her a ride, a safe place, a way home, and she answered with a machete. The story of Grant Nelson faded from national headlines, but in Chicago, his name still echoes. At Uber offices across Illinois, a framed photo of him hangs quietly next to a quote he once posted on his social media: "Be kind, even when no one's watching." That quote became the motto of the Memorial Foundation. As for Eliza Wasni, she is now serving her 27-year sentence at Logan Correctional Center, a maximum security women's prison in Illinois. She will be eligible for parole when she is in her early 40s. No motive was ever publicly confirmed, no apology ever made. Grant was 35 when he died. His life was full of music, kindness, and unspoken goodness. And in the end, the world didn't just lose a man, it lost something irreplaceable. A reminder that violence can come from anywhere, and kindness, though not always returned, is worth giving anyway.